Sexual assault has become a hot-button issue on college campuses as universities struggle to comply with a federal government requirement known as Title IX. Clemson University in South Carolina recently suspended an online course for students after complaints about some of the questions. One of those questions asked how many times and with how many partners a student had engaged in sex with. The university says all of the information provided by the training was kept confidential and believes the training would help students make better decisions. But do they need to know about all the private interactions students are having?
Hi, I'm Ashley.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Virginia.
And today we are actually talking about Title IX.
Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 is a federal gender equality law that prohibits discrimination based on sex in education programs and activities that receive federal funding.
Clemson this year required students to take some Title IX training, and the training was actually used in, I believe, about 200 other colleges, and they've never found any problems with it. But this year, a few students complained because they weren't sure how anonymous it could actually be, and a few of the questions were, a little.
Some of the questions were not necessarily ethical to ask.
Yeah, the questions seemed to be really personal, and like Ashley said, Title IX is about sexual harassment, which includes sexual violence, not so much about like sexual activity. And the Title IX was just kind of asking a lot of questions that students felt uncomfortable answering. And a lot of students spoke out on Twitter about it. Like just an example of a tweet, a student said, "Come check out Clemson's beautiful campus, but first you have to tell us how many sexual partners you've had." Hashtag Title IX. So students spoke out about how they felt concerning the survey, and Clemson ended up suspending it.
It was also on a lot of major news sources, like CNN had an article about it, and so it kind of went viral.
Chris, that's our legal expert. We'll start with you. Was this perfectly legal, what Clemson was trying to do?
I don't think so. Now, let's just back up a little bit. About a year and a half ago, the Obama administration changed the rules on how, the regulations on how universities investigate sexual assault issues, and they beefed up Title IX and ordered universities to take a more aggressive role, which is why Clemson ended up in the position they're in. Clemson's problem is they created this, what they call training, and ordered mandatory every student, faculty member, and staff member at the university to answer these questions, sign on to a third-party web page with their student ID number, and then claiming not only is this anonymous, which it can't be if you're using your student ID, it's secure. Well, Target and Home Depot can't keep their servers secure, and so I don't think this was lawful at all, and I don't think that you have the authority to kick a student out of school who says, "I'm not telling you how many people I've had sex with, Jackie Valley." I think that it's laudable that they want to do something to ensure safety of young people on their campuses. This is a little bit aggressive.
Yeah, and I think that one of the main issues was that Clemson didn't really explain why students needed to take this. It was just kind of like, you know, you got an email about it and you had a deadline to complete the survey by. But I don't think that the organization handled it very well as far as informing students of why they needed to take it and why they needed to answer these questions. And I kind of believe that students didn't need to because they ended up suspending it. So it was just kind of a mess, really, it seemed like.
Yeah. We actually tried emailing 2 coordinators for Title IX, but we didn't get any responses, just to see what their thoughts were on it, or maybe like what they plan for the future. But that failed.
Yeah, and I feel like I respect Clemson for wanting to raise awareness about sexual violence, and you know that's definitely an issue that needs to be talked about. But I feel like there are other ways to go about it. So it was just ended up being unsettling.
I thought it was really invasive, and especially since it was tied to my name, really personal questions.
I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't really feel like it was super intrusive. I thought these were pretty normal questions. Like, I didn't feel super worried about answering anything.
My thoughts on the Title IX training were very kind of, I was very concerned about the questions that were being asked, just because I felt like they were a little bit too personal in the way they were structured. To ask students about, our personal sexual lives and, our engagements in drinking. I felt like it was other ways they could go about asking those questions, maybe with, not going into fully details of how many partners we've been with and, were we under the influence of alcohol. I don't see how that has a clear relation to, Title IX training and make sure we're protected under that act. I just feel like it was just a way for, finding out what students do and when they do and how they do it, and it wasn't very appropriate.
I wasn't even really aware of what it was, and I saw the email saying that I needed to take it, and I kind of forgot about it until I found out that it was suspended, and then I kind of started looking into it just via social media mainly. And I just got a really negative vibe of like what it was, and I knew it had to do with sexual violence, but that's about it. It was all, if I hadn't researched it for this class, I would have just still been confused, you know? So.
Well, before taking this class, I associated it more with just athletics and making sure that athletic teams are equally, they have equal opportunities, and so it was interesting to see this more sexual harassment side of it.
So I took it and I did not process anything about it, so I'm not a great source to go to about it, but just looking back, now I'm like, oh yeah, those questions were on there. Maybe they were a little invasive. But I don't know, it just didn't really register in my mind just because Clemson made it so, what's not noticeable, but important that you had to take this training by November 1st.
Yeah.
So it's more of a do it to graduate thing.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of students who took it like you and didn't think that much into it, but really it just takes a handful of students to start questioning, and then it blows up like this. So
it's also interesting how it was handled in the aftermath. After we got the email stating that it was dismissed because of a few questions and a few people having concerns about them, that not much else was said, and I think that it should have been addressed more by the university, but that's just my opinion.
Well, do you guys think that Clemson even creating this training was kind of a way to, as we said, window dress, that the university is just taking care of the problem?
Not so much window dressing, but more so saving themselves of future problems.
Well, I think at any large university there are going to be cases of sexual harassment, and I think in the past year Clemson has faced a couple, and so it was more of a hot topic. So I feel like that's maybe why Title IX started being stirred up the way it was.
Especially with the eye that's been placed on Greek life, especially this year. I think it was another way for them to try and make
and it was
sure
all
that
happening around the same time. So, well, in conclusion, researching Title IX was really interesting, and I definitely think that the law is very useful for opening discussion about gender equality and things that we need to be talking about, and it was interesting to see how Clemson handled it through the survey. We learned a lot about that. Do y'all have anything to say?
I also think it would be good. It's something that, like we said, not a lot of people know about, so I think it's something that we should be educated on, but in a different manner than Clemson try to do it.
I mean, I agree with both of you. It was interesting following or researching this entire semester about it. And yeah, I'm interested to see what Clemson plans for the future of it, and even what Title IX nationwide is going to look like in a couple of years.